Hey there, welcome to the Classy Career Girl podcast. I am super excited to bring to you one of our best ever episodes at Classy Career Girl. We're replaying a very top episode that got one of the most downloads ever, and it's all about how to figure out what goals to set. And I think this is really good timing to share this episode with you. We are not at the beginning of the year. I'm recording this now actually in March 2025. So we are on the verge of Q2 of 2025. And so this is the time where I always look back at my vision board. I always look back at my goals that I had outlined in January, and I create a new 90-day plan for Q2. And I kind of actually really even create a new annual plan for myself too, because so much has changed, right? Since January 1st, when you wrote those goals down. So I'm excited for this episode. I'm also going to give a couple tips here for you as you start to think about what goals you should set. I know there's been a lot of changes with the economy, with the labor market, political changes, so many things happening in the world. And so this is a really good time over these last few months. Maybe you have had changes yourself in your career, in your work, in your vision of what you want to do with your life and your career. And so this is a really good time to set aside. Go grab our free 90-day planner at www.classycareergirl.com/free plan. Go get that and create your 90-day plan with us. The first thing that you want to do when it comes to figuring out what goals to set, and I do this still today, is I look at my vision board. Maybe it's time to create a new vision board. Sometimes I do that like halfway through the year. You can even do that now if you don't feel like you have a good vision board. You guys, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know I set a secret Pinterest board on Pinterest. Every year I create a new board. Sometimes I create two boards because my life has changed so much halfway through the year that I feel like I need now a new vision. And so what I do is I look at that board every single morning. It's kind of like my foundational grounding part of the morning of like, what do I want to have happen in the future? Where am I headed? What are some of those values and those things that I want in my life? And what do I want to remember as I go throughout the day? And so having that vision, it's really important because that's going to help you figure out what goals to set. And I hope that we can help you figure out what those goals are. So it all starts with that vision board. It all starts with where you want to go over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, this does not have to be super specific. So it is okay to be vague in this vision. And that's why I like the vision board, because you can actually visualize what your life is going to look like. So I live in Florida now, so I've got a lot of beaches on my vision board, a lot of, things about being outside, planting a garden. All of these things are on my vision board and just kind of help me visualize what those goals are for the future. And having that vision board lets you dream. And so I really want to allow you and tell you it's okay to dream about the future in the next 5 to 10 years. I know it might seem rough right now. It seems like you're totally stuck and you have no way out and you have no idea what the future should look like and what your goals should be. And this is your opportunity to just dream. Like, if I could do anything and not fail, what would my life look like in the next 5 to 10 years? What do other people have in their life that you're like, oh, that would be so cool? I get that a lot. When we traveled around Europe last year, we homeschooled our girls and we traveled around Europe. And I get a lot of people saying, wow, that would be so cool. And that, if you're having those feelings of like, oh, that would be so fun to do, to travel, to do anything that you see other people doing in their life, add that to your vision board. That's a really good way to know that those are the things that you want to have in your life in the future as well too. So the other tip that I wanted to give, because this podcast recording that I'm going to play for you was recorded a few years ago. It's actually a guest interview. So I'm super excited for you to hear the interview. And if you haven't listened to the first one, which I doubt you probably have, but some of you guys have been listening for a long time, so this may be a repeat for some of you, but still very, very, very good interview to re-listen to. The other thing I want to add is your friend ChatGPT can help you figure out what goals to set. And so if you start with that vision, if you start with yourself and your dreams and your goals for the future, like what you want that to look like, if you make a list, write down that list, type out a list of where you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. It can be vague. It can be like, I want to be a coach, or I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to live in Florida, I want to travel in Europe, whatever it is. Write those things down, and then we can ask our friend ChatGPT to help us what should our goals be for the next year? What should our goals be for the next 90 days in Q2 of 2025? What should I accomplish? If my long-term vision is to blank, what do I need to do over this next year? What do I need to do over these next 90 days? And use that. I do this now all the time. Every time I'm coming up with any sort of plan, I set that vision. I set it myself. So I'm not using AI to tell me what my dreams are. That's really important, right? Like, you have to be the one to dream it. But we can use ChatGPT to help us make those plans, tell us what tasks we need to do, put it in a very clear outline format. Here's what to do in the 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. Here's what to do each week of the next quarter. It can help you so much kind of clarify what actions need to take to get to your goals. So those are some new things I wanted to share with you in 2025. These are the things I'm doing as well to help me get clear on my future and my goals as well too. So hopefully that helps. And now I'm excited for you to listen to our episode. One thing I do want to say as well though, it is spring. And so every spring we enroll our latest class in our career coach certification program. It is a cohort. We all go through it together and graduate together. And it's a great group of other career coaches and of course our amazing alumni who come back and share their tips as well too. So if you are interested in becoming a career coach, now is one of the best times there is to become a career coach because of our current labor market. So if you are interested in learning more, getting my career coach startup kit, talking to me about if our career coach certification is the right next step for you, I would love to talk to you. You can go to www.classycareergirl.com/career coach webinar to get my free training all about how to start your career and your business as a career coach. And then also you can get my career coach startup kit as well too. So hopefully I will be talking to you if you're interested in career coaching, and then enjoy the interview. Hello, everyone. Today we have an incredible guest on the show. The woman you're about to meet is a best-selling author, speaker, nationally recognized productivity expert, and serves as a growth strategist for female leaders. Our guest today, Tanya Dalton, is also the founder and CEO of Inkwell Press, a multi-million-dollar company providing tools that work as a catalyst in helping women do less while achieving maximum success. Now, Tanya recently published her book On Purpose, and we talk about some of our favorite things of all time: planning goals and finding your passion. I asked her, how do we figure out what goals we should be setting and what happens when our goals get off track? And she shares with you how she built her 7-figure business in 18 months and the plans and the systems she used to make her goals and dreams happen. So I am super excited to introduce you to this episode today. So you are going to love it. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Classy Career Girl podcast. I'm your host, Anna Runyon, founder and CEO of Classy Career Girl, one of Forbes' most influential career sites. This is a podcast for a community of women who want to turn their passions into work they love. You'll learn how to become happy, successful, and balanced with class, skill, and style. We believe that you can create your future. So stop delaying your great life. Go put yourself out there. You can have your great life and career right now. All right, welcome to the podcast, Tanya. I am super excited to have you here with us today.
I am very excited to be here. I'm excited because we're going to have a great conversation.
Yes, and I told you right before this, my audience loves planning, goals, purpose, all that stuff. So this is going to be a great conversation that we're going to have. And
sounds like my kind of people.
Seriously, this is your kind of people. So I wanted to first ask you, like, I imagine it's been a journey getting to this place, right? Where you've been an author, you've created a company, you're a nationally recognized productivity expert. Can you share a little bit like about the journey and how you have created your own career and life on purpose?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it really is, it's not a really straight path. It's very crooked, lots of curves, lots of twists, lots of rocks and stuff that have been in my way. But here I am. I like to say I really started my career in about 2008. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and I had 2 small kids, and my husband would travel and leave, and he would go around the world. Literally, he'd buy a ticket called the Around the World ticket, where he would leave our home in Dallas and he would fly around the planet and come back the other side. So he'd be gone for like 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So I started a business, kind of like a little side thing on like a hobby. I started with $50, and I thought this will keep me, busy doing things while he's traveling. And then I had a conversation with him when he was on the other side of the planet, where, I was telling him all the things that kids were doing. And he said, I'm missing everything. I'm missing all the milestones. I'm missing the moments with the kids. I'm missing all these things. And I was like, no, 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 you're not. But it really pulled on me that this is how he felt. I knew he had loved doing international marketing, but I didn't know it pulled at him so hard. So I hung up the phone with him and I stood in my bright yellow kitchen and I made a decision that changed my life forever that day. I made the choice that I was going to grow this little side hobby business where I started with $50, selling to friends, maybe friends of friends, but that's about it. That I was going to grow that business so it could be large enough to absorb his MBA income and he could come and work alongside of me. Now, at that time, I was a stay-at-home mom with no business experience and two small kids. I sat down that night though, and I planned and I mapped things out and I figured out what that was going to look like for me with these two small kids and a husband who travels for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. And within about a year, I was able to make that goal. I was able to make that dream come true. And so my husband started working with me in 2009, and we have been working side by side, or rather across the desk from each other ever since. So about 11, 12 years at this point, which is really great because it's really given us this lifestyle we want. But in about 2013, I looked at my husband and I said, I love you. I love working with you, but I don't love what we're doing. This little side hobby was just supposed to be a side hobby and it had grown and grown. And so I had to decide what I was going to do. And so out of that time, just to kind of fast forward the story, I made the decision to open up Inkwell Press Productivity Co., which is a company that's really focused in on empowering women through productivity to understand how to live their best life, to really redefine productivity so that women could understand it's not about doing more, it's doing what's most important. So we closed up the other business, went without any income for a couple of months, 4, 5, 6 months or so, tightened our belts quite a bit, and opened up Inkwell Press, which we scaled to 7 figures in less than 18 months. And it just took off. And as it grew, I was able to really lean more into the education part of the business. I used to be a teacher, so I started the podcast, and then I was approached by publishing houses to write books. And so it's just grown really organically. I think because I am so passionate about what I do. And that is why I'm excited about this book, because it really is about igniting that passion in you for doing what you love and making those choices on your terms. That's how we get the life that we really want.
I love that it starts with a choice. And one of your chapters in your book too is like choose to make a plan. And you like described it in your experience too. Like that was the first thing you did. You made the choice
Yeah.
and then you made the plan. So what's this plan that you made that works so wonderfully?
Well, do you have all day? I mean, really, and I think this is the thing that's most important for people to understand. When we're making a plan, we have an idea of where we want to go. And that's a big part of what we talk about on the book about, really looking forward into the future. Living on purpose is about living bigger than today, looking into the future of where it is you want to go, and then backing that up to decide, what do I need to do 6 months from now? What do I need to do a year from now? What do I need to do, today to make that happen? But the key is to build in that flexibility, to build in that grace, because life, right? Like life demands flexibility, it demands grace. And when our plans are too rigid, when they're made of something like glass, they're going to shatter because life is full of twists and turns. So for me, when I sat down that day, it really was okay, I know what I want. My big vision is to grow the company large enough so that I can absorb his income. That was really the big thing that I focused in on. How am I going to do that? By myself, just a girl with a ponytail and two small kids playing at my feet. So I realized I needed to create systems. I needed to create some strategies for myself. How am I going to make this work? At the time, I didn't have a website. My first website was like through my .mac account. So it was just really, really like rudimentary and nothing fancy. But then, it's this whole idea of, okay, as you grow, thinking about where you want to be in the future. So I didn't grow for where I was at that day or at that moment. I grew for where I wanted to go. And so with shipping products, I looked at how does Amazon ship products? Now I have no desire to be an Amazon or a giant, company like that. But at the same time, what are they doing? How can I reverse engineer that and figure out what I need to do? So I started creating these systems for myself. All right, if I'm going to ship, what days am I going to ship and how am I going to do it? Okay, if I'm going to have a website, how often am I going to maintain it? How am I going to do these things? And mapping those things out for myself so that when we started to ramp up, when I needed to call my mom and say, hey, we have a lot of Christmas orders. Can you come help me? I could actually hand her a piece of paper and say, all right, here's how we're going to do it. Right. And I think that's one of the mistakes people make as they're going into business, as they're starting off their companies, is they think it's just me and I already know how to do these things. So stopping to write it down or stopping to figure out how we can make this work better, I don't have time for that. And I say you don't have time not to do that because that's how you scale and grow. As I mentioned, when I opened up Inkwell Press, we scaled to 7 figures in 18 months. That was me, my husband, and one part-time employee. And we're able to do that because we created these systems, because it all worked seamlessly so that we could add in people. All right, guess what? We need a customer service rep. Pop in somebody here because we had those systems in place. All right, we need someone to help manage the inventory. We could easily pop them into place because we had mapped it all out. So that's really where it starts. You start small and then it grows from there, but always thinking about where it is you want to go, keeping your eye on that big prize in the future.
Yeah, and with 2 kids too, I bet it was easier because you had systems. It took less time
Mhm.
to get things done, so you could move faster in the business and still, spend time with your
Absolutely.
family too. So
Well,
yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's the thing too, is, I had 2 small kids, so I ran my business when Mother's Day out was in session. So it wasn't like I was running it 5 days a week when I first started. It was like Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 3 or 9 to 2 or whatever it was, right? And then I also brought my kids into what I was doing with the business. I made them always feel like they were a part of what I was creating with this business. It was our business, not just mine. And I think that makes a huge difference.
exactly. So a lot of times I think my listeners struggle with figuring out what goals they should be setting. So how do you
Mhm.
figure out, if you're just, trying to do this, like what should those goals be?
Yes. Well, I love that question because I think what happens a lot of times is we look around and we go, okay, this person over here is doing this and that person over there is doing that. So I need to do this and I need to do that, right? Because this is what everybody else is doing. And then we find that we're not really satisfied. We're not really happy or we don't like how it's working because we're not really setting the goals for ourselves. We're doing what we think we should be doing instead of really what we want to be doing. So there's a chapter in the book where I talk about this whole idea of, we know the A, and we know the Z. We want to go from A to Z, but we need help with the B to Y. How am I going to get there? What do those goals need to look like? So what we do is we look into the future. What is your potential? What is the potential if you were to look 10 years, 20 years down the road? What would you like this to look like? And then we back that up a little bit and we go, okay, if that's the potential of where I could go, what's possible? What's possible in 5 years? Okay, that's what's possible in 5 years. Let's back that up a little bit more. What's practical? What's practical for me to actually accomplish in 12 to 18 months? And then we start to realize, okay, if this is in 12 to 18 months, back it up even more. What do I want to prioritize? Now, those priorities, when we back it up, those need to be your goals. So it's different for everyone, right? Whatever my goal is dependent on what my potential is, where I really want to go with my business or whatever it is I'm looking for. But really, when we take this long term vision and we back it up, we back it up, we back it up again, that's when we begin to understand, okay, if I want to do this thing, if this is what is absolutely practical in 12 to 18 months, I know I need to do this, this, and that. That's how we figure out our goals by, again, looking forward into the future and then backing it up a little bit, kind of using our little Marty McFly time machines to go forward in time and then back in time a little bit.
Yeah, and that helps with the focus too, because I know that's a whole part of this too, is like being focused. So you know what those small chunks are.
Well, and we get more excited about it. And I think that's the part that's missing. A lot of times with our goals, we feel like it's this like finish line that when we get to that goal, when we cross that finish line, then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm going to be satisfied. Then everything's going to be amazing. But the finish line keeps moving. It's always moving back,
Yeah.
right? So, what if we chose instead to find happiness every single day? And when we're doing things that are tied to our goals, that are tied to that long term vision, that's when we feel satisfied. That's when we feel like, okay, I did good things today. I think that far too many women are chasing busy because that's what we think we're supposed to do. We have a to do list that's 1,000 miles too long. We're checking a million things off of it, falling into bed at night and thinking, oh, why didn't I get more done? I should have done more, even though we were busy all day long. But if we're doing fewer things, but things that are more meaningful, things that are tied to that big vision of where we want to go, that's when we go to bed at night and go, today was amazing.
Mhm.
Today was incredible. Look at what I did today. And I think, and this is, let's ask your listeners this question. I want you to ask yourself this. When is the last time you went to bed and said, I did amazing today? Wow, look at what I did. I can almost guarantee you it's been too long. And we
Yeah.
want to end most of our days that way. That's how we do it when we're really fulfilled by what we're working towards, when those goals are really fulfilling and meaningful to us. That's when our life feels extraordinary.
Yeah, it's funny because you say when you go to bed, and for me, I can tell the days when I wake up excited to do the work
Hmm.
too, right? There's some days where I'm like, oh gosh, I got to do that today. So that's kind of my barometer of like, am I excited or am
Right.
I not?
Hmm. Well, and the truth is, we're all going to have those days. One of the things I talk about in the book is doing what you love doesn't mean you love what you do every single day. I'm a business owner. I love owning my business. I love talking to women. I don't love paying sales tax. I don't love running inventory or talking with my manufacturers, but it's a part of what I do, right? There's a lot more that I do love. So I wake up on a more regular basis, fired up and excited. But the truth is, we're always going to have days that are a little bit harder, and that's okay because as long as we have more days that we're feeling really solid and really good.
Exactly. So what do you do if you get off track with your goals? Because I know a lot of our audience has
Mhm.
gone over the last couple of years. It's been crazy. There's been change. A lot of people are not where they thought they would be, right? The goal didn't
So
happen
true.
because of the pandemic. So what do we
Mhm.
do now? What do you do when things get off track, and why is it not a bad thing?
Yeah, well, it's not a bad thing to get off track. To be honest with you, sometimes it's when we get off track that we really discover what we're really meant to do. A lot of times it's the detours of life that we're like, "Oh, wait, I really like this view. I'm off that highway that I was on and I'm over here with this mountain view. This is a lot more of what I really want." So I think the first thing is not to feel like you failed. It's okay to get off track because we all get off track. The best laid plans are the ones that have flexibility built in, where there's going to be some detours and some backtracking from time to time. Nothing goes perfectly. No matter how it looks on Instagram or Pinterest, nothing ever goes 100% as planned. So the first thing is just to feel like, okay, you know what? This means I'm human. This means I'm normal. This means everything's okay. So I like to tell people when this happens, when you feel like you've gotten off track, we want to do the 3 A's. We want to acknowledge, we want to assess, and then we want to adjust. So the first step is just saying, oh man, I got off track. Hold on, where am I? What's going on? All right, this is okay. Now, acknowledgement doesn't mean that you're like, yay, I'm off track. It just means recognizing it and realizing it. All right, this isn't where I really want to be. And then we go to that second A, which is assess. And this is a big one because I think what happens a lot of times is we set a goal for ourselves and then we get off track or we've it's fallen off of kind of our radar. We haven't been nurturing it. And then we're like, oh gosh, I'm off track. I got to get back on. And we don't stop and assess and go, okay, wait a minute. Is this goal still for me? Is this really still something I want? Sometimes the goals that we set ourselves are different than what we want 6 months down the road, sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes 6 days down the road, right? So assessing, is this goal really still for me? And if it is for me, how do I want to figure out what I want to do? Or if it's not for me, how about if I just say, okay, this isn't a failure, this is a learning opportunity. Let's get rid of that goal and set something else for ourselves, right? Or maybe I really like where I am. Like I said, maybe this is really where I'm meant to be after all. So that's the second A, is to assess. How do you think you want to move forward? And then that third A is to adjust. All right, I need to adjust what I'm doing. If I want to stay on this goal, if I want to stay on this path, what do I need to do? Do I need to backtrack a little bit? Do I need to find a new route for myself? How can I approach this from a different way? What wasn't working for me before that I could switch and twist up a little bit to make it work for me now? So acknowledge, assess, and then adjust. But the big thing here is beat yourself up isn't one of those steps. Tell
Mhm.
yourself you're the worst isn't one of those things we talked about here. Telling yourself that you always fail, you always do this, not a part of this. It's simply acknowledging, all right, got off track, assessing, do I still want this? And then adjusting. All right, let's move forward. I think the problem is we think when we've gotten off track, we failed. And a lot of times we haven't. Most times we haven't because there is no failure. We've learned an awful lot getting off that path.
Definitely. Yeah. And that leads into like procrastination and staying stuck too. Cause
Yes.
I feel like sometimes you procrastinate on those goals and those dreams, and they're still your goals and dreams. So
Yes.
how do you ditch that procrastination and get unstuck?
I like this question because sometimes we procrastinate on our goals because they're not for us. Sometimes we procrastinate because we're scared, because this feels really big and audacious and it's a little bit frightening, right? So procrastinating isn't a sign that this is something you need to ditch or it isn't really meant for you. It's just a sign that we need to stop for a minute, take a step back, and just breathe. Okay, how are we going to move forward? Go back to those 3 A's. But really, what I like to tell people is, we think the opposite of stuck is unstuck. That there's this magical moment, the clouds are going to part, the rainbows are going to shoot down from the sky. That's not going to happen. The opposite of stuck is action, taking action, a small step, a tiny step, an itty bitty step, something to help you build momentum. And really, the smaller the step, the better, because it means you're more likely to take it, right? I think what happens a lot of times is we feel like it's these giant leaps. We have to make these giant big steps, and that's what counts. That's not what counts at all. What counts is really putting your foot in front of the other, one after the next, taking one small step, and then two small steps, and then 3 steps, 4 steps. Then all of a sudden you're running and you're off and going. So, really figuring out what is the next smallest action that I could take? Is it researching? Is it calling someone? Is it making a list? Is it just doing something to build that momentum? Because then what happens is you've built that momentum and it's easy to do that second step. And that becomes easy to do the third step. So procrastination is just, I like to say procrastination is a mask that perfectionism wears because we're worried that we're not going to do it right, or we're worried that we're not going to do it good enough. And really, I'd say let's throw that out the window and let's just make those small steps and feel good about moving forward.
Yeah.
That's really what matters.
Yeah. And that leads into habit stacking, right? Because that's what
hmm
you recommend for helping you achieve goals. So why don't you share what that is too?
Yeah, so this is the thing is I think a lot of times we like to blame procrastination and we like to blame our lack of willpower. We look around at other people and we go, "Well, they're just disciplined. That's what's wrong with me. I'm not disciplined enough." And then here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And in fact, if you really lived a disciplined life, would you enjoy it? It's kind of like the white couches on Pinterest. Like I have these pins of these white couch like living rooms and I look at them, I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. And then I'm like, I have a dog, a cat, 2 kids. Like we like to eat
It
popcorn on the
wouldn't
couch.
stay
That sounds
white.
awful. No, I would be constantly cleaning it. So we have this ideal in mind, but the reality is it's not even what we really want. I don't want to be disciplined. That sounds boring. It sounds awful, quite frankly. And a lot of people who are truly that you're looking at, who you think of as disciplined, they just have a series of habits that they do on a regular basis that makes them appear to have a lot of willpower. And habits are great because habits are something that our brain does without any extra work, without thinking, right? The problem is when we think of habits, we think of like biting our nails or right doing things that we don't want to do. But if we establish healthy habits for ourselves, then we look like we're disciplined. We're making movement forward every day. So what we can do is we already have habits established in our lives. 45% of your daily actions that you make every day are habits. Duke University did this great study where they discovered that most of what we do are habits. So what we can do is if you want to establish a new habit, let's say you want to start meditating. Like that's your habit that you feel would be a really healthy habit for yourself. Do you have a habit that you're doing already that you could build it off of? Okay, well, every morning I get up and I get a cup of coffee and I walk over and get my cup of coffee. Okay, well, could you leave your phone next to the coffee maker so the meditation app is right there? So as you're going to get your coffee, you get your coffee, something you do without thinking every single day. Meditation is ready to go, queued up. So then you can habit stack that, right? And then you're building a new habit off of something you're already doing. And then you can even build off of that. Like, let's say you want to journal. So you put a journal next to wherever you're going to meditate. So you just keep stacking one after another after these habits we're establishing for ourselves. That's how we create a routine for ourselves. And that is really how we start to feel really fulfilled by what we're doing in the morning or in the afternoon or whenever these habits are taking place.
I love it because it ties back to the conversation in the beginning when you talked about the systems for your business. And now it's almost
Yes.
like building systems for your personal life too, which is
Hmm.
kind of the phase that I'm in in my life right now too. So it's like your business systems and personal life too. Like how can your just life run better, you know?
Yes, yes. I think that's so true. And I think people think when they think systems, they think very like robotic or very, and it's not that at all. There's lots of ways to create systems that incorporate joy and happiness, like your morning coffee, like drinking your morning coffee on the porch or doing your meditation after drinking your coffee or all those little things. We can build those into systems so that we're building happiness into our day without even feeling like it's any extra work. And
Yeah.
that's what's amazing.
Yeah. I love that. So I want to ask you, this wasn't on my list beforehand and probably wasn't on your list, but a question I get all the time is how do I find my passion? How do I find my
Mm.
purpose? And I feel like you would have a really good answer to this.
I do actually. This is
Okay,
something
good.
I think about a lot. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think a lot of times our passion is really buried in our past. It's, one of those things where in the pursuit of adulting, we forget about what we're passionate about. And if we just take a moment to go backwards and really think about who we were before that whole cloak of adulthood came on, before we worried about the rent or the mortgage, before we worried about carpool or, doing those things that quote unquote make us adults, what were the things that you enjoyed? What were the things that you loved, that you found a lot of excitement with? A lot of times, our passions as adults are buried in our past. And that's what's wonderful is your past. So it's just a question of revisiting it, asking yourself some questions like, what were the things that I really loved? Not the piano lessons that your mom dragged you to, that you like thought kicking and screaming, but what were the things that you like looked forward to with anticipation that you were excited about? Let's say that you really loved playing soccer as a kid. What was it about soccer? Was it being outside? Was it the competitiveness of it? Was it the team mentality? What was it that really ignited you, that got you excited about it? And use that as a little stepping stone to get you to a little bit deeper. Like, okay, if I love that, what about this? Right? Same thing with thinking about who did you want to be when you grew up? Who was it you wanted to be? Did you want to be the president? Did you want to be a policeman? Did you want to be a firefighter? Did you want to be a teacher? Maybe you wanted to be Wonder Woman, which seems ridiculous because you're like, how am I going to build a passion off of that? If you wanted to be Wonder Woman, what was it about Wonder Woman? Was it that she stood for truth and justice? Was it that she, fought the bad guys? Was it that she inspired a whole generation of girls to stand up for themselves? What was it about that you found so appealing? And a lot of times, if we just dig into that and we take it out from underneath the bed where we've shoved our past, right? When we dig into it and we start to ask that question of why, and then we ask it again, why, we kind of channel our inner 3-year-old. Those of you with small kids know exactly what I'm talking
Yes.
about there.
I have a
Uh,
3-year-old, so there you go.
yeah, lots of whys. But we need to ask ourselves that why. Why did I love that? And then a lot of times that can be a great fertile ground for us to plant our seeds into and let our passions grow.
Definitely. I remember I was like I wanted to start a Save the Earth club. I always think back to that too when I think of that, like,
Wow.
in the beginning and how that relates to like
Hmm.
what I'm doing too. Like wanting to have some change and impact,
Well,
when I go back
wanting
to
to make
that.
a difference in the
Yeah.
world. It doesn't even necessarily have to do with the environment. Perhaps
Right.
maybe it does, but it's really more about uh, being an activist to create change in lives, right?
Hmm.
And maybe it's in personal lives, maybe in professional lives, maybe in all those things, but it stems from that,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that
Yeah. No,
funny?
it's a
I
very
love
interesting
that.
question to go back to your childhood and see what you were excited and passionate about too. So tell us where people can find out more about you and more about your book.
Yes, so the best place to find me is at tanyadalton.com. You can find links to my podcast, The Intentional Advantage, there. You can find links to my book as well, both of my books, The Joy of Missing Out, and this newest book, On Purpose, you can find at tanyadalton.com. The book you can find anywhere books are sold, Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, your local bookseller. But if you want to figure out where to find it, you can certainly go to tanyadalton.com and everything is there.
Awesome. So what would be your final words of wisdom for someone who, is a busy woman, like you say, who wants to build that
Mhm.
extraordinary life of meaning and success? Like what would you tell that woman today?
Just start. You'll be so glad that you did. And truly, what we talked about, a little bit ago, that whole idea of the opposite of stuck is action. I would encourage you to take action. One small thing that you can do today. Maybe it's getting the book. Maybe it's making a list. Maybe it's time traveling back to when you were a kid and thinking about what you were passionate about. Do one small thing for yourself today. It will help you build that extraordinary life for yourself, because I can tell you, not just from my own experience, but from the experience of other women that I've worked with, that extraordinary is a choice. We can choose that. It's just actually making that choice. That's what makes a difference. And we make that choice through our actions on a daily basis. Choosing to invest in yourself is one of the best investments you can make.
I love that. Thank you so much, Tanya, for being here today and sharing all of your helpful tips and advice today.
Absolutely. This is a lot of fun.
Hey everyone, I gotta tell you something. Launching your dream career business is not what it used to be. Trust me, I've been doing this for going on 11 years now. You need a roadmap now if you want to launch your dream career business, if you want to get your career unstuck and never dread Monday again. So I have created the Love Your Work and Life roadmap, and it's 6 easy steps to follow that will set you up for success. It's completely free, and inside of it, you're going to be able to discover the top 3 mistakes that people make when trying to make a career change and get their dream career business off the ground. You're going to learn how to prioritize and what you need to do first to create work you love. So you can go download the free roadmap right now at www.classycareergirl.com/roadmap.